Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It's your boy TNL, and today we are going to be talking about 7 truths that can quietly shape your entire life. You know, most people will think their life changes because of a singular big moment, right? A new job, a new relationship, more money, maybe, a fresh start, maybe somewhere new that they've moved. But that's not usually how it works. Life is shaped very quietly by the things that you repeat, tolerate, and ignore when nobody's paying attention. And these 7 truths, don't feel urgent when they're happening, but over time, they decide almost everything, in my opinion. And if these hit a little too close, it's not an accident, and maybe you're in the right place. You know, what you tolerate slowly becomes who you are. And let's be honest for a second. There are things in your life right now that probably drain you a lot. You know, situations, maybe with people, habits, conversations, that you already know aren't right, right? But you keep tolerating them because they're familiar, they're easier than change, or you don't want to rock the boat. And the problem is that tolerance doesn't stay neutral, right? What you allow long enough will become your baseline, and eventually it'll become your identity. And do you want to identify as the person that does the thing that you despise the most? You don't wake up one day unhappy, you slowly accept less until less feels like it's normal to you. Growth will often start quietly. The moment you decide something is no longer deserves access to you and your energy and all that good stuff. Moving on though, you know, your environment shapes you more than your intentions ever will. You can say you want more from your life and still stay stuck. Not because you're weak, not because, environment always wins. If your days are unstructured, if your space is very distracting, you have a lot of things in your area that are distracting you. If the people around you normalize staying comfortable, your motivation simply just doesn't stand a chance. This isn't about cutting everyone off or becoming extreme and very isolated, but it's about realizing that what surrounds you teaches you what's acceptable. Your environment will genuinely shape your habits, and your habits shape your outcomes. So change your room, change your scenery, and best believe that your behavior will follow that. Also, your relationship with money is going to mirror your relationship with yourself. Money isn't just financial, and let me be very clear about that. It's also very emotional. The way you spend, the way you save, the way you avoid or the way you obsess over money, it usually reflects deeper patterns within yourself. You know, to be more impulsive, to be fearful, to have self-trust, to be patient, to have avoidance. If you ignore your finances, chances are you ignore other hard truths as well. And if you chase quick wins, you probably rush decisions everywhere else in life. Money doesn't make you better or worse, but it just reveals how you handle responsibility, best believe. And when there's pressure involved, learning to manage money calmly often, teaches you how to manage yourself and thrive in better ways. Moving on, consistency is very quiet. That's why most people tend to miss it. Big effort consistently feels like progress. right? New routines, strong motivation, sudden, random changes. But those moments are loud and temporary, right? But what actually shapes your life is what you do on the days when nothing feels exciting and nothing feels, you know, sporadic and brand new and all this stuff. The boring routines that you follow, the small decisions that you follow, the habits that don't get noticed day by day. Consistency doesn't feel powerful in the moment. It feels very repetitive, right? Keep doing this over and over, keep doing that over and over. But over time, it compounds into confidence, into stability, into trust in yourself. And most people don't fail because they're incapable, but they fail because they stop before consistency has the time to really set in and marinate and compound and work, you know? Next, the voices you listen to become the way you speak to yourself. Pay attention to this. So, the way you talk to yourself didn't come from nowhere, right? It was learned, it was reprogrammed over and over again in your mind. From people who criticized you, from expectations that were placed on you, from comparisons you absorbed without realizing while you were just scrolling, thinking you were just looking at the feed. Eventually, eternal voices will become internal ones. And that's why being careful about what you consume matters so much. Not just content, but even conversations you have with people. Your inner voice will continue to shape your confidence and your decisions and your risk tolerance. So, really importantly, just try to protect that because the way you speak to yourself will either push you forward or very quietly hold you back from what you're really supposed to be doing. Um, Moving on, also, growth always feels like discomfort before it feels like confidence. So, discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong, but it's usually a sign that you're doing something new, right? Every meaningful upgrade in life, better habits, discipline, independence, self respect, it all comes with a stretch that feels awkward and very uncertain during times. Avoiding discomfort doesn't remove it altogether. It just postpones it, often with more regret later, wishing that you had taken that initiative. The people who grow aren't fearless. They've just learned that discomfort is very temporary. It's something that you don't have to deal with forever. It comes and goes. But staying the same lasts so much longer and has so much of more of a lingering effect on you. That's why it's always good to put yourself in uncomfortable positions for growth. Finally, time passes quietly until you look back on your past. Time doesn't really warn you when it's slipping away from your grasp. This is gonna be very important. Days tend to blur together, right? Weeks will pass very fast. Years will compress and become a lot shorter than how they used to feel. And then one day you're gonna look back and you're gonna realize how much was shaped by the small, repeated choices that you made when you were younger. And the danger isn't making mistakes, but it's just drifting. It's living on autopilot enough that you wake up in a life that you never intentionally chose to have for yourself. Awareness is so powerful. It's powerful because it interrupts the drifting. And if you're watching this right now, you're already more aware than you think. You're already more aware than a lot of people around you. A lot of people don't care and they just go on about their life any kind of way possible. But you're trying to make the changes and the necessary adaptations to become a better version of yourself. So give yourself a pat on the back. You're doing good so far. Just follow the principles I've laid out for you. None of these truths are very dramatic. They don't demand immediate action. They don't scream for attention. But together they can really shape your entire life. You know, if the video made you pause, that's good because pauses are where change begins. If you pause and you're like, man, maybe he's onto something. Maybe he is actually telling something that'll genuinely help me going forward. You don't need to fix everything today, but you just need to stop ignoring the quiet things that are shaping you and the bad habits. Just cut them all out. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. You really want to start now because this is how real growth will start and manifest for you. Thank you for listening now.